Hey, welcome back to How to Barbecue Right. I'm Malcolm Reed. Today I'm going to show you how I cook a pork butt on my Weber kettle. Now I'm going to set the kettle up for some low and slow cooking. Have a void in the center where the pork butts go, and I'm going to snake the coals all around the outside, producing good, low, even heat. It's going to make some delicious pulled pork in the end. Let's get to cooking. So I'm starting with a 9-pound pork butt today. You notice it's got a nice little fat cap on top. I'm not going to take that off. But what I am going to do is grab my Dexter Russell fillet knife and take off some of this excess fat that lies right in here. It's really not edible, and I don't want it in there. There's a little vein that runs in there. We're going to pull that out. Now, if this was a competition, you could separate that money muscle out, but we're making just eating pulled pork today, so I'm not getting overly aggressive. And that fat in this area is just a barrier. We're wanting to create some bark on this pork butt. That looks good. It's shaped up nice. That one actually has a pretty nice money muscle on it. I might knock off just a little bit this fat down here. It won't render. That's just thick fat. You don't want to get that in your pulled pork. And I really like when I'm doing trimming to use a flexible blade like this Dexter Russell knife. Now on the back side, a little bit of excess fat. I'll go ahead and trim some of that out. If you see any glands or anything discolored right here, we want to get rid of that as well. Just cleaning this pork butt up some. Now I've took all that barrier off the back side. Any of the little trash that was on there, we got rid of that. So on the fat cap side, I'm not taking it off. I'm gonna leave it so it gives me some protection during the cook. But what I am gonna do is score it real shallow. So I'm just gonna take the knife, make some about 1-inch score marks, straight across it, not deep. You can see it just goes down to the meat. It's gonna let that fat separate. It's gonna help it render a little bit, and it makes for some delicious little morsels in the end. Now I want to come back and do the opposite direction, right across this fat. We'll start right here, 1-inch spacing, about. You know, it don't have to be perfect. It's barbecue, right? And I love the way this checkerboard looks. It makes these little squares of delicious pork goodness right there. They'll come right off when we get ready. Pop them in your mouth, and you got some meat candy. So now we got to get this pork butt seasoned. And at this point, you could use whatever you want. If you got a favorite barbecue rub, go ahead and use it. I'm using my hot rub. It's great on pulled pork. No binder, just the seasoning on the meat. Starting with the downside, I like to go pretty heavy on a pork butt. It can take it. Large cut of meat, a lot of muscles in there, a lot of fat. We want to make a good bark. Make sure you get in all the little crevices on the back side. We want it all covered. Now we're going to roll it over, and I'm also seasoning the fat side. I want to make sure I kind of spread out the little pattern we made so the rub gets down in there. Let it stick to the fat. Now I'm just gonna let the rub sit here and work on the outside of the butt. You can pat it in a little bit. I want the seasonings to start melting in, pulling some moisture out, taking some flavor in. So my setup for the Weber today for low and slow cooking is a void in the center and charcoal all around the outside edge. Now I've got a charcoal Vortex turned upside down to create that void. You could put an aluminum pan there, baking pan, whatever you want. You just want to keep a blank space for the coals to go around. I want the briquettes away from the Vortex, and I want them to the side. Now I've also scattered in some chunks of cherry pecan wood to give us some smoke flavor. As these coals get good and hot, the fire's gonna burn the wood and we're gonna get some nice smoke for the pork butt. Now to get the coals going, I'm gonna put a couple tumbleweeds on one end of the charcoal. Let those coals get good and hot. We're gonna close the lid down, adjust the vents, and it's gonna create a snake effect all the way around the outer side of the Weber. That's what's gonna give us that good low and slow, even heat. Now we're ready for the grate. I've got some hot coals going. We'll close the lid, and right now I'm gonna leave it wide open on the exhaust. I want some air to flow to get those coals going. As my temperature creeps up to about 200, 225, I'm gonna check the vent back on the top and bottom. We'll be ready to cook the butt. So the temps are up to about 250 on the Weber. That's right where I want it. It's time to put the butt right in the center of our Weber. And I'm setting it right over that Vortex. Fire's gonna creep around the side. It's already got some good cherry smoke going. That smells awesome. But you wanna hurry up and get the lid closed. The longer you let it get oxygen, the bigger that fire's gonna get. Having it checked back with the vent half closed is gonna keep it right at 250. That's where we want that low and slow cook. So we've been rolling about 3.5 hours. The only thing I've done to the butt, every hour I've sprayed it with a mixture of apple juice and apple cider vinegar, 50-50 blend. I'm gonna give it one last spritz here because it's the exact color I wanna see. We're starting to get dark where we scored it. The fat's rendering down. It's looking fantastic. And I don't know if you can tell on camera, but we've burned about half the charcoal. We're snaked around about halfway, 3.5 hours. So I'm gonna grab the butt, wear some hand protection when you do this. Let's go over to the cutting board. It's already looking good though. Before I wrap it up tight, I'm gonna add just a little bit of my vinegar sauce right over the top. Makes the perfect liquid in the wrap. It's gonna make that bark pretty too when we take it off. I'm just eyeballing it. Just wanna get a drizzle over the top, let it run down. I mean, it's almost good enough to eat right there. So now let's get it wrapped up tight. 2 layers of foil, hold everything in. That's gonna make it easy to unwrap. And this is the point where I wanna watch the internal temperature. So I'm putting my ThermalWorks dot probe right in the thick part, right in front of that blade bone. And I'm just gonna set it on one of my little chicken racks in a shallow pan. We're ready to go right back to the pit. I'm gonna center it up right on the grill, get the lid closed. And the reason why I put it in the pan is because it's gonna make it easy to take off. It's gonna catch any drippings if we do lose anything. Also gonna help that butt cook more even because that aluminum pan is gonna kind of shield it even more throughout the cook. Now, I'll just keep an eye on the coals. We're halfway through. I'm thinking it's gonna take probably another 4 hours, so I don't want the coals to run out. So I'll come out here and check them in about 2 hours and see where we're at. All right, you can hear the dot going off. That means we've hit internal on this pork butt, right at 200 degrees. It's been about 8 hours. I did hit a little bit of a stall, about 165 to 170. Took about an hour and a half for it to push through that. But wrapping that butt up in foil helps a butt or a brisket or anything push right through the stall. I do want to verify with my thermopen that my temps are right. So right now I'm looking for feel. I mean, I'm still seeing 200, 203 back there, thick part 200. So we're good. This butt's ready, super soft. You can see we've still got some charcoal left, which is perfect. 8-hour cook, that snake method held right up. So this is the point where if you're cooking this butt, you want to serve it later, you could drop it down in a dry cooler. It can hang out 3-4 hours, still be piping hot. But with this one, I'm gonna go ahead and glaze it, show you what it looks like. So I'm gonna unwrap the foil, and be careful because it just come off the grill. It's 200 degrees internal. You know it's hot. The juices will run. Oh man, full of juice, full of moisture. Bones about to pop out. All those little nuggets of deliciousness. That's what I wanna see. So I drained the juice off the butt a little bit so I can work with it. I'm gonna move the foil over. So I'm gonna put it right back on this pan. See if I can slide it off onto the little rack here. Smoking hot, I don't want it to fall apart. Look at that, pull it right out from under it. Now we're ready to glaze. So for the glaze, I just mixed up some vinegar sauce and some deep barbecue sauce. You could use whatever you want. I like the combo. We're just gonna drizzle it over the top, let it run down. I warmed it up just a little bit in the microwave so it would be thinner. Let's pretty this butt up a little bit. I'm just taking the brush, touching it up. That looks good to me. It's ready for some fire, and I'll be ready to show you how we're gonna pull it. I'm going right back on the Weber, center rack. You don't have to really give it a whole lot of air for this. We want the heat to set the glaze. It's only gonna take 5 or 10 minutes. Just kind of sets that bark on top. After 10 minutes, you can see the sauce is set on top. Bark is beautiful. This butt is done. We're ready to take it to the cutting board, turn it into some pulled pork. Y'all know a butt has a built-in thermometer. It'll tell you when it's done. If you cooked it right, this bone should slide right out. Let me see if it's going to. Ooh, yeah. That's what I'm talking about. Let's put this butt over here and break it up. We'll start with one of these little morsels on the top. I want to try a bite of that. That's what I've been waiting on. I cut them like that grid pattern just so they would turn into that meat candy. Oh yeah, that's where it's at. I tell you what, let me pick these little bites off because I know folks are going to want to eat these. It's little bites of heaven right there. Well, I'm breaking in a butt. You can get all in it if you want to. I like to go ahead and take my time, separate any fat that's in there, and then take it apart by the muscles. You can take these plugs out. You can take that money muscle off of it. Might be a little fat right there. Rake that right off. And then pull all these tubes out. They come right out whole. We'll shred those up in just a minute. This lets me really pick through it, get any undesirables out of the way, and all I've got left is beautiful meat. Back here in the back, we'll take that off in chunks. Just breaks apart with your hands. Leave that bark all off in there. Same thing for that horn muscle. We'll get it out. Look at that beautiful muscle right there. You can just take it and separate it into strands of pulled pork. It's hot, it's juicy. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I like about a butt. It's got so many different muscles. They all have different textures, different feels. Some of that stringy, long strands. That's where you get that real lean, white colored meat in the butt. The darker meat comes back from around the bone area. If I'm cooking to serve, I'm just gonna mix it all up anyway. If I'm gonna sit here and eat it in its best form, I'm gonna take my time with it. I had to get a bite of that tube. That tastes too good right there. Flavor Town. So I'm talking no injection, no thrills, just a little bit of hot rub, some good smoke from some pecan and cherry wood on the Weber Kettle. It don't get any easier than this. Only thing I might do is hit it with just a little bit of vinegar sauce, because if you got a big plate of this pulled pork right here, that's all you need. Maybe a bun. I'm gonna drizzle just a little bit of vinegar sauce over it, and I'm gonna call it a day, as it's time to get down on some pulled pork. Get one last little bite of the cube that we pulled right off the top with the bark, the sauce, the glaze. Melts in your mouth. I'm gonna get out of here because it's time to get down on this. Appreciate y'all hanging out with us today. If you like what we're doing, subscribe to the channel. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Shell and I will talk about this Weber Kettle pork butt, all the other delicious stuff we've been cooking on our weekly podcast. Give that a listen too. We'll see y'all next time. I know you want one of these delicious morsels. It's got your name on it.